Mr. Grindstaff.
Yes. I'd like to ask Kurt to come up. You mentioned to talk about a legislative report first.
There's a lot of action going on, at least in bill introduction in the legislature. Mr. Miller.
This one's on. Good morning. There are several topics I'd like to cover with you, but I'll try to keep them all brief so the total time isn't too long. But let's start with the bond. It's anyone's guess as to whether it'll be continued or not. The oral opinion that staff in the Senate received on the bond was that it can be put over to 2014 if nothing is done to amend the bond except the date of the election. Any other changes to the actual text would result in a two-thirds vote. So a majority vote would put it over. Any change in text, deadlines, or anything else specified in the bond require two-thirds. And because it's a constitutional, not constitutional, because it's a vote, a initiative, referendum measure.
Statutory initiative.
Yeah, statutory initiative. The legislature cannot throw it in a trailer bill and just call it a budget-related item and put a majority vote on it. That's also part of the opinion they got. So we shall see. On the budget side, the Delta Stewardship Council budget appears will be before the Senate Subcommittee Number 2 on Wednesday. The only issue outstanding with our budget is our level of reimbursements we receive for federal money. We get several $100,000 million a year for various programs and projects that they share with us on the cost basis. The current amount budget is about $2.9 million. We'd like to keep that authority to receive that much money for the next budget year. Ledge staff and the analysts believes that maybe something a little less than that would be more appropriate given our past spending or past receipt record. We'll find out Wednesday how that'll turn out, but I think what's going to happen is even if we get a reduction in the amount authorized, we can file what's called Section 28 notices with the legislature and finance if we receive money past, say, $1 million threshold. It's approved pro forma. It just causes more paperwork on our part to file these papers and get them in on time. So not much. It's not dramatic. I don't expect any other problems with our budget. The overall scheme of things, the controller issued his cash report on Monday, and the estimates are only about $100 million below, 146 million below governor's estimates that he used in his January budget. So on that account, they're tracking fairly well. The report does point out they still have a $21 billion cash flow problem, and they're solving that. They're using some short-term borrowing to the extent of $6 billion, selling notes in the market, and the other $15 billion is being covered with internal borrowing and loans for other special funds, and which of course will have to be paid back at some time. In your packets this time, rather than put the 18-page complete view of the world in terms of bills outstanding, I narrowed it down to 4 pages, essentially, that cover water-related issues and Delta-centric issues that you would find most interesting rather than labor issues or CEQA reform that isn't fleshed out yet. So the short version is before you, and if you need any background information on any of those bills, I can provide it.
Mr. Miller, just a suggestion. I think you at least want to identify the ones that caught your attention.
I was going to get to that.
More serious.
Yeah. On the last page, I think the only bill that really specifically reforms or amends the Delta Reform Act is Senator Wolk's bill, 1495 on your list. It would add an exemption to the covered action section of the act that do with projects that involve dredging or certain types of leases. It's a technical.
This relates to the Port of Stockton's preference that they be excluded, their actions be
exactly
excluded from consideration.
Yeah, the local issue involves the Port of Stockton project. I think some people on our staff are of the opinion they really don't need that exemption because it's not a covered action anyways. But whatever the case may be, that's what the bill says, and we'll continue to track it and follow it. I think finally I just want to mention one other federal bill, H.R. 4020 by Mr. Garamendi. His bill amends the Flood Insurance Act of I think 68, excuse me. It essentially provides exemptions to agricultural structures in floodplains and exempting them from various provisions regarding building standards, insurance requirements. And it's a rather extensive bill. It's 8 or 9 pages. It has not been set for hearing. It's in the Finances Committee in the House, awaiting a date for schedule. And I think those are the things I wanted to cover.
All right. Well,